Hello and welcome to the National Resource Center. This is K Pegu. I am an associate professor in the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, Tezpur University. I shall talk about acculturation and language endangerment in this module. As I have already discussed at length on acculturation in my previous module, I shall emphasize more on language endangerment and preservation of endangered languages in this module. Moreover, I shall also talk about the role of media in preservation of endangered languages. Languages have always gone extinct throughout human history, but at recent times they are rather disappearing at an unprecedented rate. UNESCO observes that languages are the centerpiece of the cultural diversity of the world, yet they are also a vulnerable part of the world's cultural heritage. Safeguarding endangered languages is a crucial task in maintaining cultural diversity because each language embodies unique local knowledge of the cultures in which it is spoken. So, what is language endangerment? It is a process through which speakers of many minority or lesser dominant languages stop using their indigenous or heritage language, thereby subsequently adopting the dominant language for a variety of reasons. A language may get endangered when its speakers are negligible in number and who do not claim it as their own, and therefore neither they use it or pass it on to their subsequent generations. It may also be endangered when it is used in a fewer daily activities and as such has no close associations with a broader set of social or communicative functions. According to UNESCO, a language is considered endangered when it is on the verge of extinction. A language is in danger when its speakers cease to use it and when it is not passed on from one generation to the next. If a language loses all its native speakers, it becomes a dead language. Cross says that a language is endangered if there is no transmission to younger generations. There are an estimated 6,800 living languages worldwide. More than half of these are endangered, and taken together, 96% of the world's languages account for only 4% of the world's people. Losing one's first language effectively means forfeiting much of its social and cultural identity. When a language becomes endangered, it loses not only speakers but also the social context where the language is spoken and becomes impoverished and structurally simplified with heavy influence from the locally dominant language. Let me now briefly talk about endangered languages in India. India exhibits a unique mosaic of more than 400 languages and 3,000 odd dialects, making it a very distinct linguistic, cultural and ethnic landscape. One unique feature of the Indian languages is that the composition of each linguistic group includes multiple group identities in terms of caste, class, religion or region, which are more divisive and exclusionary rather than linguistic identity. That means membership into a linguistic group cuts across different castes, religions, regions or social classes. While India celebrates the existence of such linguistic and cultural diversities, which is unparalleled, the forces of globalization have threatened the existence of many of the languages, particularly those which are numerically less represented. There is an utmost necessity to document and revitalize endangered languages, as many of them will disappear within the next few decades. Several scholars predict that up to 90% of the world's languages may well be replaced by dominant languages by the end of the 21st century, which would reduce the present number of almost 7,000 languages to less than 700. It seems clear and unequivocal that every effort should be made to document and preserve endangered languages. In this section, I shall talk about endangered languages in Northeast India. Northeast India constitutes a linguistic region with about 220 languages in 3 different language groups. 1. Indo-Aryan, number 2. Sino-Tibetan, and number 3. Austric, that share common structural features. Assamese, an Indo-Aryan language spoken mostly in the Brahmaputra Valley, developed as a lingua franca for many speech communities. The hill states in the region like Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and Nagaland are predominantly inhabited by tribal people with a degree of diversity even within the tribal groups. Besides, the indigenous inhabitants people from Tibet, Burma, Thailand, West Bengal, and Bangladesh have migrated into the region as various periods of history. Researchers found that Assam has 55 languages, Gujarat 48, Maharashtra 39, and West Bengal 38 are among the most linguistically diverse states in the country. As per the 2011 census, there are about 122 languages spoken by more than 10,000 people. Of them, 22 are the scheduled languages. Other than the 122 languages, the survey has come up with languages that are spoken by less than 10,000 people, many from tribal areas, nomadic communities, and from the interiors of northeastern part of the country, as noted by Devi, the president of People's Linguistic Survey of India. Arunachal Pradesh is the richest among the states with 92 languages, while other northeastern ethnic groups like Mizo, Naga, Manipuri, both tribals and Meitei, Khasis, Bodos, Mesings, etc. have managed to safeguard their language and culture. Sadly, the tribal groups of Arunachal Pradesh have miserably failed on this count. Historically, Mizo, Naga, Manipuris, and to a certain extent Bodos have all fought strongly for their cultural and linguistic identity. Let me now talk about languages policies in India. India has been a crucible for the drama of language conflict, and contrary to the state-building efforts in other empires, India remains a linguistic mosaic. The Government of India has initiated a scheme known as Protection and Preservation of Endangered Languages of India. The Mysore-based Central Institute of Indian Languages (CIIL) works on the protection, preservation and documentation of mother tongues languages of India spoken by less than 10,000 speakers, depending on the degree of endangerment. The UGC created centers for endangered languages in 9 central universities and 11 state universities. The Ministry of Tribal Affairs has recognized the Baroda-based Bhasha Research Center as a center of excellence. It is astonishing to know that an accurate picture of the country's languages does not exist. Moreover, the Census of India counts speakers rather than languages and does not recognize languages with less than 10,000 speakers as languages at all, and just groups them as others under major languages. Because of this, the languages that are at risk are the ones which are being ignored. The divide between major and minor languages and the official sidelining of the latter, which is enshrined in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, has also resulted in a power struggle among linguistic communities to the detriment of the weak. Currently, an expandable list of 22 scheduled languages obliges the state to help the languages prosper and make official documents available in them. The development of non-scheduled languages, on the other hand, requires no such obligation. There are several issues which emerge as far as policies towards minority languages are concerned. First, there exists a lack of definitional clarity between what constitutes majority and minority language. As Hindi, the official language of the Union of India, is the language of only about 2/5 of the total population of India. In 2002, the Supreme Court decided that the operative unit in respect of determining who belongs to a minority within the meaning of Article 30 will be the state and not the whole of India. Further, the 8th schedule of the Constitution specified 14 major languages of India, and it was deemed necessary in the interest of the educational and cultural advancement of the country that concerted measures should be taken for the full development of these languages. 8 more languages were included in the schedule in subsequent years: Sindhi in 1969, Konkani, Manipuri and Nepali in 1993, and Bodos, Dogri, Maithili and Santali in 2003. As per the 2001 census, these scheduled languages are utilized by 96.6% of the population of India. In addition to the 22 scheduled languages, there exist about 100 non-scheduled languages having a minimum of 10,000 speakers. Besides these two categories, there exist numerous other languages and dialects in India. The Constitution of India enabled the Parliament to create new states, and underlining the major reorganization of states of India in 1956 and in subsequent years was the rationale that linguistic minorities be offered adequate opportunities for political and economic growth to ensure that there is no feeling of discrimination or neglect. These 29 states of India have the power to legislate their own official languages. It's a pity to note that there has been no attempt to track the inventory of languages in the country and their conversation. The last proper survey was the Linguistic Survey of India, conducted between 1894 and 1928 under the direction of George A. Grierson, an official of the Indian Civil Service, which identified 364 languages and dialects at that time. Let me now talk about the role of media in preservation of endangered languages. While endangered languages continue to reel under the pressure of being extinct, the need to create awareness and preservation of endangered languages becomes all the more pertinent. The media could play an important role in this aspect, as it is believed that media representational practices shape and affect public perceptions. It is surprising how little attention is paid to the loss we could have due to extinction of languages. In the mainstream politics and media, there is hardly any discussion on the rich cultural reserves and heritage we have in the form of languages and how fast this reserve is being depleted. The media seems to be a silent spectator to our understanding of language endangerment. It is seen that by and large, news articles often present only the numericals regarding the rate of language loss, which is seen as more urgent to linguists than to the general public. Furthermore, when the media portrays the need to preserve the depth of language, it does not include the necessity of empowering cultural groups and to link the issue more clearly to the cause of language endangerment. The media views language loss as something trivial and instead places the fate of languages within a broader context of modernization, which implies that minority languages have no other alternatives except succumb to the forces of globalization. The global media particularly considers language extinction as inevitable, as it sees the prevalence of English as increasingly dominant and essential in a global environment. This necessarily means that any attempt at mitigating language loss through government policy or grassroots efforts seems futile in the face of these powerful forces. The media needs to relook at the way how it reports endangered languages. It should give the public or politicians enough information to frame sound policies on language preservation and revitalization. Mass media could be very instrumental in meaningfully educating the people on the importance of language preservation. Nettle and Romain in 2000 asserts that the situation that is most often confronted is that of neglect. And according to them, language extinction is a fact of modern life, and most revitalization efforts is rather too late or unrealistic in the face of globalization. Language loss leads to the irrevocable loss of cultural heritage of a particular community. Thus, endangerment of languages raises concerns not only among linguists but to the general public as well. The loss of each language reduces the linguistic diversity regardless of the reasons why people abandon their language and adopt another language. There is an urgent necessity to preserve and document endangered languages because each language is a celebration of the rich cultural diversity. When language is an expression of a unique ethnic, social, regional or cultural identity, it is the repository of the history and beliefs of a community. Moreover, language embodies a fragile human knowledge about agriculture, botany, medicine and ecology, etc. As each of these are dynamic and constantly reshaped through the behaviors of the population with which they are associated, bemoaning ancestral traditions alone may not be sufficient. It remains unclear why there is not much of an effort to preserve and revitalize endangered languages. I shall now wind this module by discussing on the reasons for language preservation. Languages are the repository of cultures and traditions. When a language dies, culture, heritage and customs too get disorganized. India is a land marked by plurality of cultures and languages, where varied cultures, traditions, customs and languages of various communities are continuously at work throughout the whole process of nation building. In recent times, due to the increasing waves of globalization and acculturation, this cultural plurality is at a serious threat, as there has been an ever-increasing predominance of the dominant culture over the minority or the lesser dominant cultures. This devastation of cultural plurality may be perceived in the increasing number of indigenous languages that are on the verge of being extinct over the years due to a gradual decrease in the number of its speakers. The world scenario regarding language endangerment is quite the similar. According to an estimate given by J.H. Hill, in the last 500 years, at least half of the world's languages have disappeared. As such, language preservation is a matter of serious concern so as to preserve the linguistic diversity. There are numerous reasons for preserving and protecting linguistic diversity. Scholars assert that different languages provide botanical, biological and geographical information and insight into human cognition. Moreover, linguistic diversity is considered to be a human right from the speaker's point of view, and hence its preservation must. Every efforts have been raised by the linguists, governmental as well as non-governmental organizations, members of the Endangered Languages Group and international forums such as UNESCO to save the endangered languages from getting extinct. This is done, for example, by developing linguistic documentation, creating orthographics, producing dictionaries and language learning materials, promoting positive attitudes toward an endangered language both outside and within the community, planning linguistic programs and introducing and enforcing linguistic policies. The expanded graded intergenerational disruption scale, or EGIDS, was developed to report a vitality estimate of every identified language in each country where that language is spoken. In case of India, the government has initiated a scheme known as Protection and Preservation of Endangered Languages of India. Under this scheme, the Central Institute of Indian Languages, Mysore, works on protection, preservation and documentation of all the mother tongues languages of India spoken by less than 10,000 speakers, keeping in mind the degree of endangerment and reduction in the domains of usage. All these have led to strategies which scholars term as language revitalization and language maintenance, a large-scale requirement for the survival of a language. Measures such as audiovisual recording the oral form of a language that are on the verge of extinction, raising the consciousness of the people regarding language extinction and the remedies that are to be pursued for its survival, providing training and certified programs to the linguists, engaging in worthwhile and meaningful research, as well as adequate government policies for protecting the minority languages seriously need to be undertaken for the survival of the endangered languages. Thank you.